Some beings arrive in this world cushioned by warmth and immediate acceptance. Yet others are thrust into the very heart of chaos as if chosen to walk through fire before they can ever rest in light. Spiritually gifted cats are among these mysterious creatures. Again and again, stories emerge of cats who begin life in shattered homes, abandoned alleys, or families marked by neglect, yet who grow into the very animals that carry a healing presence too profound to ignore. This paradox is not accidental. As Carl Jung suggested, the soul does not choose safety, it chooses transformation. And Edgar Cayce echoed the same, often speaking of animals as messengers of God, placed in our lives with precise intention. The chaos, then, is not a curse, but the birthplace of sacred gifts. When we speak of the sacred wound, we speak of the very condition that seems to tear life apart, yet secretly plants the seed of healing. In the study of trauma, modern psychology calls it intergenerational transmission. The shadows of past pain silently pass through bloodlines encoded not only in family behavior, but even in our very biology through what scientists now call epigenetics. Researchers on ACEs, or adverse childhood experiences, show us how early wounds can shape perception, sensitivity, and resilience. And here, in a way, science is only beginning to articulate. We see a reflection of what mystics like Jung and Cayce already knew. The wound is not random. It is sacred because it opens the soul to dimensions otherwise unseen. Cats, sensitive beyond measure, seem to embody this mystery. Consider the case of a rescue cat found shivering under a collapsed porch in the Midwest. Her early months were marked by hunger and fear. Yet when adopted by a woman navigating grief after losing her spouse, the cat's behavior shifted. She began to follow her caretaker everywhere, resting gently on the woman's chest each night, purring in a way that seemed to soften sorrow itself. What should have been a fragile, broken life became a conduit for comfort, almost as if the cat's very survival gave her the gift of perceiving unspoken pain and answering it with presence. The sacred wound had transformed into sacred medicine. The Bible reminds us that the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Psalm 118:22. What is cast aside becomes the foundation of something new. Spiritually gifted cats, often rejected at the start, are destined to become cornerstones of healing in the lives they touch. Their broken beginnings become the very reason they can sense the silent ache in a human heart. Just as Christ bore wounds that became symbols of redemption, these small creatures carry invisible scars that awaken our compassion and draw us closer to divine tenderness. Yet there is a lesson here for us. Too often we see brokenness only as a defect to be hidden or erased. Many dismiss cats from harsh beginnings as damaged, assuming they will never bond, never trust, never thrive. This is the same mistake people make with wounded souls in families, thinking pain is a permanent prison rather than a hidden initiation. The truth is that suffering refines perception. The sacred wound sharpens the senses, tunes the spirit to frequencies of love and sorrow that the untouched heart might never hear. What appears fragile is often the most attuned to God's whisper. Edgar Cayce once said that animals often take on roles that mirror our own unhealed places. Could it be that the spiritually gifted cat who enters our life has carried chaos not as punishment but as preparation to hold a mirror to us, to walk with us into our own shadows? When such a cat curls at your side, meeting your grief without words, you are encountering not only an animal, but a silent minister clothed in fur. They remind us that nothing broken is wasted in God's design. From this emerges a small but profound lesson. Do not despise the broken beginnings, neither in yourself nor in the creatures entrusted to you. What looks like curse may in truth be the foundation of your calling. Just as your cat survived the silence, the hunger, the abandonment, and yet still carries light, so too can you transform what was meant to diminish you into a testimony of resilience and grace. And so we see that the sacred wound, far from being a sentence, is a doorway. It explains why spiritually gifted cats like the empaths and healers among humans are so often born into broken or toxic homes. They are not sent there to be destroyed, but to become vessels of light through the very cracks of their story. As John 1:5 reminds us, The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. This is why when you look into the eyes of a rescued cat, there is sometimes a depth that startles you. It is not simply the gaze of an animal. It is the reflection of a soul that has seen shadow and survived. And in that survival, a gift is born not only for them, but for you. But the sacred wound is only the beginning. If chaos births the gift, then what do these cats carry into the world once they have walked through fire? To understand this, we must turn to the realm of shadows and healers, where wounds become medicine and where the presence of a gifted cat teaches us to face what we have long denied. And that is where our journey now leads. In every family where silence reigns, there are shadows unspoken, griefs, unhealed traumas, patterns that slip quietly from generation to generation. Jung called this the inheritance of the unconscious, what he named the shadow. Those disowned parts of the psyche that live in denial until someone dares to face them. Spiritually gifted cats, especially those born from broken or toxic homes, carry this mystery within their very presence. They are not only survivors of chaos, but keepers of the unseen healers who illuminate the forgotten corners of our lives. To live beside them is to live beside a mirror that reflects both our light and our wounds. The shadow is not evil, it is simply what has been hidden. Families often hide anger behind smiles, fear behind silence, grief behind laughter. The cat who has walked through abandonment or violence comes into our lives carrying a kind of second sight. They sense tension before words are spoken. They withdraw from false kindness but lean into genuine affection. Their body becomes a compass, pointing toward authenticity, refusing to play in illusions. In this way, they perform shadow work for us. They show us, often wordlessly, where love has been twisted and where truth longs to break through. Consider the story of an elderly man in Virginia who adopted a stray tabby, one who had been found emaciated and trembling near an old factory. At first, the cat was aloof, hiding in corners, only emerging at night. But slowly, as the man himself, a widower carrying decades of unspoken grief, sat quietly, the cat would crawl onto his lap. Each time the man wept, the cat appeared sitting silently, refusing to move until the tears subsided. Over time, the man realized something startling: his cat would only come close when he was honest with his emotions, never when he forced cheerfulness. This small creature was teaching him that shadow must be acknowledged, not denied. Healing does not come from pretending, but from presence. Here is where Jung's archetype of the wounded healer becomes so relevant. In myth Chiron, the centaur was struck by a wound that never healed. Yet he became the greatest teacher of healing. In many ways, cats from toxic beginnings embody this same archetype. Their own wounds make them tender to the wounds of others. They do not erase pain, but they teach how to hold it differently, how to turn it from poison into medicine. What could seem like a curse becomes a calling. Edgar Cayce often spoke of animals as silent companions of the soul sent by God to remind us of forgotten truths. He described them as links between the visible and the invisible, able to tune us back to the harmony of spirit. When a cat, scarred by its past, still purrs at your side, it is not only comfort, it is prophecy. A living reminder that what has been broken can still radiate light. The Bible affirms this paradox. In 2 Corinthians chapter 12:9, Paul writes, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." What we call weakness, God calls the opening for grace. Spiritually gifted cats born in brokenness carry this verse in their very being. Their scars become doorways for grace to flow into a household. They show us that healing is not about erasing the past, but about allowing God's light to shine through the cracks. There is a small lesson here. When you sit with your cat and sense their quiet knowing, do not rush past it. Ask yourself, what part of my own shadow is being reflected here? Perhaps it is the loneliness you deny, or the anger you suppress, or the tenderness you are afraid to show. In witnessing your cat's survival and openness, you are invited to embrace your own unspoken truth. This is not merely about the animal's healing. It is about the lineage of pain within you that longs to be transmuted. Shadow work, then, is no longer an abstract practice. It is a living dialogue between you and the creature God has placed in your care. Dreams, Jung reminded us, are the royal road to the unconscious. How many times have people dreamed of their cats, receiving guidance or warnings through their silent images? Edgar Cayce himself described dreams as channels of spirit, and animals often appeared in them as protectors or messengers. When a gifted cat visits you in a dream, it may not simply be memory. It may be the spirit whispering through fur and paw, reminding you that you are not alone in the dark. The perspective is clear. Spiritually gifted cats do not simply survive their own shadows. They help us face ours. They are healers, not because they erase pain, but because they teach us to see it differently, to walk with it in truth and in love. What they carry is generational light illumination that not only helps their human companions, but ripples backward and forward across the family line. By refusing to live in denial, by embodying raw presence, they become vessels of intergenerational healing. And so, when you look at a cat who once trembled in fear but now sits calmly beside you, recognize what you are seeing. You are witnessing shadow transfigured into light, a silent healer carrying not only their survival, but your invitation to wholeness. This is why these cats feel so different, so spiritually charged. They remind us that the work of healing is never wasted, that what was once buried in darkness can be brought into the dawn. But if the shadow teaches us to face truth, and the healer shows us how wounds can transform, what then is the larger purpose of these gifted creatures? Why does God place them in our path, not only as survivors and mirrors, but as living assignments? To answer that, we must turn to the divine paradox, how brokenness becomes blessing, and how even the smallest creature can be a messenger of God's larger plan. That is where our journey continues. Every scar tells a story, and every story whispers of a purpose greater than pain. Spiritually gifted cats who have known hunger, rejection, or abuse are not marked by curse, but by calling. The brokenness they endure is not the end of their story, it is the preparation for their assignment. Just as a seed must split apart in the soil before it can rise toward light, so too these animals break open in order to become vessels of blessing. Carl Jung once said that the self arranges circumstances to provoke growth, not comfort. Edgar Cayce spoke of animals as emissaries of the unseen, bearing messages from God to awaken human hearts. Together, their wisdom converges into a profound truth. A cat's broken beginnings are often the very conditions that prepare them to carry light into the lives they touch. Their assignment is not random. It is divine. Think of the black kitten found trembling in a cardboard box behind a gas station, rescued by a young man battling loneliness and addiction. At first, the kitten was frail, distrustful, yet within weeks it began curling beside him every night, refusing to leave his side during his darkest hours. The man later confessed that he might not have survived those nights had it not been for the quiet, steadfast companionship of that fragile creature. The blessing flowed both ways. The cat found a home, the man found a reason to live. What looked like two broken stories colliding was in truth a sacred appointment designed by grace. The Bible frames this paradox beautifully. In Romans 8:28 we are told, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." Even the shattered beginnings of a stray animal are not wasted. They are threads in a larger tapestry. What we perceive as abandonment may in fact be orchestration, a path woven by the Spirit so that healing can reach not just one life, but an entire lineage. Modern psychology now affirms what mystics have long intuited: trauma can ripple across generations, yet healing also travels through bloodlines. When a wounded animal or human chooses connection instead of repeating isolation, a cycle is broken. Epigenetics shows us that patterns of fear and survival can be softened by love and safety. Thus, when you rescue a cat from brokenness and allow them to flourish, you are not only saving an animal, you are embodying a sacred act of transmutation, shifting energy for yourself, your family, and perhaps even your ancestors. Here lies a lesson for us. Do not overlook the unlikely places where God plants his prophets. The spiritually gifted cat, scarred but resilient, is not simply a pet. It is a living sermon, a silent preacher who teaches by presence rather than words. Their divine assignment is to remind us that grace does not avoid brokenness. It enters it, redeems it, and transforms it into blessing. When they sit in your lap after a lifetime of rejection, they are showing you that love can rise again from ashes. Edgar Cayce often emphasized that animals reflect the state of our soul. A gifted cat from a toxic background may be mirroring your own hidden wound, showing you what needs tending, reminding you to slow down, breathe, and listen. In their stillness, you encounter your own unrest. In their forgiveness, you glimpse God's mercy, and in their survival, you learn that no past, however dark, is stronger than the light that longs to shine through you. The perspective shifts when we recognize this. Your cat is not merely surviving with you, your cat is assigned to you. Just as prophets of old were sent to awaken nations, these animals are sent to awaken households. Their presence is not trivial. It is transformational. They carry generational light, teaching us that our own broken beginnings may also be doorways to higher purpose. So what is the practical step for us? Begin by honoring the cat in your life as a messenger. Journal the moments they comfort you, noticing how their patterns reveal what is unspoken in your own heart. Pray with them, laying your hand gently on their back as you whisper scriptures or words of blessing, acknowledging them as part of your healing journey. Meditate in their presence, watching how their calm breathing invites you into the rhythm of peace. In doing so, you participate in their divine assignment and welcome the blessing they carry into your home. As John 1:5 proclaims, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." Every spiritually gifted cat born into chaos is a living testimony of this verse. They carry brokenness into your life not as baggage, but as blessing. Their assignment is to remind you that grace is stronger than despair, that love is more enduring than fear, and that nothing surrendered to God is ever wasted. And now, dear listener, I invite you to pause, reflect. What shadow has my cat been showing me? What pattern am I being called to break? How might I honor my companion, not just as an animal, but as a messenger sent for my soul? Take these questions to heart, let them guide your healing, and recognize the blessing that already rests in your home. If this message has stirred something within you, if you see your own story mirrored in your cat's journey, then I ask you to share this moment. Like this video, subscribe to our channel, and continue walking with us as we uncover the hidden ways God speaks through the creatures we love. For in their silence, His voice is often the clearest.